Good morning, everybody. I'm here representing practitioners. I think I'm the practitioner, more or less, on the panel. And I'm going to share with you in 15 minutes my 32 years of dealing with ethical issues as a U.S. diplomat. So I guess I need to speak very slowly to fill up the time. Actually, I would want to start with a quote from President John Kennedy's inauguration. Most of us know the very famous one about ask not what your country can do for you, but there's something else he said which I think in many ways was just as significant. One of the most articulate inauguration speeches, he said, "Let every nation know, whether it wishes us well or ill, that we shall pay any price, bear any burden, meet any hardship, support any friend, and importantly, oppose any foe, in order to assure the survival and success of liberty." Because of those words, in U.S. foreign policy, the pay any price became an overarching ethical mission for the United States. And in effect, trumped all others. It became the ace of spades of our ethical direction as a nation. And unfortunately, the flip side of that was the part about oppose any foe. And oppose any foe in those days meant the Soviet Union. And the big problem with that was that we were using, in many respects, unethical tactics to achieve what was a very ethical strategy. So from my own experience, I will list a number of these issues which came up and where I'm afraid we as a nation failed, and hopefully they can serve as lessons for the future. And I have to say that I was involved in them myself, and it brought some real ethical dilemmas on a personal basis. First of all, we were very, very selective in our human rights practices in Africa. My whole diplomatic career was in Africa, 8 different postings. And while we were very strict with some countries' leaders, with others we totally overlooked the fact that they were practicing very, very bad human rights records, just as much as the other side, but we overlooked theirs, like Sergeant Doe in Liberia, because they were on our side. They were helping us oppose the Soviet Union. We supported a number of quote-unquote anti-communist fighters, for example in Angola, where they were committing atrocities just as bad as anybody else, but they were doing it in the name of quote-unquote liberty, again, against the Soviet client state, so we had no problems with them. We had, for many years, a very lukewarm opposition to apartheid in South Africa. We had a policy called constructive engagement, whereby we said that perhaps engaging constructively with the apartheid government, we will change their practices and their direction, which in fact did not happen, not until the people of the United States put pressure on the government of the day to do away with constructive engagement and to confront apartheid directly did that end. We were very selective in responding to disasters around the world. Thankfully, when the famine came in Ethiopia in the mid-'80s, President Reagan at the day said that a starving child knows no politics, so we responded very generously, but unfortunately that did not happen all over the world. And then when the Soviet Empire collapsed, unfortunately, we still continued in the same mode on many issues. When the Rwandan genocide came up, 1994, we responded, the whole world responded very dishonorably. We averted our eyes and refused to call it a genocide. When HIV/AIDS erupted as a global pandemic, we had a huge debate about using prevention as opposed to treatment. And when treatment did become available for quite a long time, we took the line of the drug companies to say that, yeah, they need to get their profits back and they have to expend so much money in developing it, so we should not force the price until other countries stepped in. And then again, we were forced to lower the cost of the drugs because poor Africans, $7,000 a year may as well have been $2 million a year for the cost of treatment. And then finally, my final ethical dilemma as a U.S. ambassador was with the war on terrorism. I was working with a very closely allied nation, but just as I was concluding my career, the whole issue of drones and what kind of tactics to confront the terrorists came up, and we had to make some very difficult choices, which in hindsight we probably should have gone in the other direction. However, I believe that the world is getting ready to confront maybe one of the most important ethical dilemmas and how to deal with it, and that has to do with Ebola. And we have gone in several months from totally ignoring it when it first emerged on the scene in the West African states of Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, to now almost going into hyperdrive in our reaction to it. And we are now finally accepting the reality that it's not going to go away on its own if we ignore it. But we have some very, very serious decisions to make on it, and I'll be very curious to see what direction not only we as a nation, but we as an international community take on it. We can decide to stop anyone from those countries and surrounding countries to come to the United States, and we may be able to put them in quarantine for 21 days. That's one policy choice. Another one is we may actually have to take away those countries' sovereignties and, like the old UN trust territories, give them to developed nations to actually run until the threat is done away with. Or, if we wanted to be really callous, we could use force to actually literally seal those countries off from other countries and just leave the millions of people who are there to their own fate. Or we can continue the half-hearted attempts that we have been doing with just helping some of the NGOs and World Health Organizations and the governments in charge there to do what they can and just accept the fact that we may have cluster cases show up in the United States from time to time, as is happening right now in Dallas. But it will be a very, very difficult decision for us to make as a people and for us to make as a united global community. I speak often on globalization, and I speak about the various forces of globalization, and until this conference, I have never thought about including ethics as one of those forces which is and will be globalized. But I think, Ralph, from now on, I'm going to very much include that. So thank you very much for making me think about that in the global dimension. Thank you very much.